Welcome to Consumer Law, What Is It Good For? A series where we look at, consider, and do our best to answer some of the common questions that come into our legal advice helpline. And the first question of 2025 is, my finance company says under our fair usage policy, we charge a fee of one monthly payment for every 1,000 miles driven. Is that right? Now, by way of a background to this question, the gentleman concerned purchased a motorhome for around £140,000 by way of a hire purchase agreement with Aldermore Bank. He paid a 10% advance payment, and after that, about £2,000 a month. He rejected the motorhome because of a mechanical fault, which Aldermore accepted. But Aldermore informed him that as he had driven the motorhome for 4,000 miles, that under their fair usage policy, they would be deducting from his refund a total of £8,000 to account for his usage, which the questioner thinks is excessive and unfair. So the starting point is both under the Consumer Rights Act 2015 and in the common law, that's previous court decisions or precedent, that a buyer of a motor vehicle is required to account for the usage that they've had the vehicle since being delivered or during the currency of the finance agreement. However, the common law also says that that deduction for usage should be balanced and set off and against an amount to reflect the inconvenience and disappointment the buyer has suffered because of buying a faulty vehicle, which seems eminently sensible. On the one hand, the buyer cannot be expected to have free usage of the vehicle while they've had it, and on the other hand, the seller cannot be expected to escape liability for the aggravation, inconvenience and disappointment that the buyer has suffered because of the sale of the faulty vehicle. So at this stage, the fair usage policy is one-sided because it only accounts for the deduction of usage of the motorhome, and therefore it seems to be unfair. Secondly, there's the method of calculating the deduction of usage. Aldermore's method is that they deduct one monthly payment for every 1,000 miles driven, which on the face of it seems unfair. And the reason for that is that the deduction for usage is based not on the amount of usage that the person's had, but rather it's based really on the amount of the advanced payment, the amount of the deposit. And that's because of this. The advance payment, the deposit, affects the amount of the monthly payments. Therefore, a person in similar circumstances with a similar vehicle to the questioner, who perhaps paid twice as much advance payment, 20% compared to the 10% the questioner paid, would broadly speaking pay half as much as the questioner in monthly payments, and therefore by extension would only pay half as much for the usage of the vehicle in the eventuality of rejection. So at this stage, the so-called fair usage policy doesn't seem fair at all. Finally, there is the issue of the fair usage policy not being disclosed to the customer before he entered the contract. Now, on this issue, Aldermore make it clear that their policy is not to disclose the fair usage policy through fear that it somehow may be abused. However, formation of contract requires the mutual agreement of the parties on all material terms. So because the customer didn't know about the fair usage policy, he couldn't and didn't agree to it. And from that point of view, it cannot be incorporated as a term into the contract. Second to that, because this is a regulated agreement, that's to say it involves finance to a consumer, that under the Financial Conduct Authority rules, the finance company must act in good faith. And good faith under the FCA handbook is characterised as honesty, fairness, and openness in dealing and acting consistently with reasonable expectation of retail customers. It seems to me, to my mind, not only is the fair usage policy not incorporated into the contract so they cannot rely upon it, but it's fundamentally unfair because effectively they've ambushed the gentleman or tried to include a term of contract by stealth. So to my mind, the fair usage policy as set out by Aldermore to the motorhome buyer is fundamentally unfair and unenforceable. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please keep your questions coming.